Director. I will be running the meeting that's being recorded, as you now know. I'm going to do the introductions and run the meeting for Sean Reynolds. Sean is our new board chair, delegated by the current interim commissioner from DEC. So I asked Sean if he would like me to run the meeting, and he said for my first one, yes, please. So to my left is Sean Reynolds, he's our board chair. Sean is the natural resources supervisor for our region here, Region 4 in DEC. Is that correct? Correct. Patty McLaughlin, our office manager, taking minutes. Casey Holsworth, representing State Parks. Andrew Curry, representing Town and Colony. Steve Rice, citizen member. Nancy Pearson, citizen member. Don Sapos, representing the Town of Gilliland. And John Ross, citizen. Everybody? So, okay. And on Zoom, we have Brad Glass. Morning, Brad. Brad's representing the city of Albany.
Morning.
Right. Let's see. Can we have a consideration for the minutes from March 21st?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there any comment, discussion? No. Is there a second?
Yes.
John, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. We have anybody here from the public that wishes to comment? Like, before we move to the Friends of the Farmers Community, I think I saw Bob, right? There he is. I just want to introduce Jessica Otney Mahar. She's representing Nature Conservancy. Good morning, Jessica.
Hi, sorry, I'm 2 minutes late, but got going.
I know. Bob, do you have a report for the Friends?
Well, not really. I guess we have we have the film is completed, and so I think we're planning out when to start showing it and so forth. So we're on that process right now.
All right. Sounds good. Under reports, Sean, is there anything you want to report on?
I just want to say what an honor it is to be here in this role. My background is as a forester before I came here a couple of years ago, so I'm very interested in the work of the commission. Currently, our region is being run by an acting regional director who's here with us in the room this morning, John Whiteman. It's in the back of the room over there. We also have an acting assistant regional director, Kevin Frazier. And that's all I have to report.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Anybody from the board want to comment or report? Casey?
Just real quick, I just wanted to let you all know that we hope to open the Big Bend Preserve and Little Lake State Park soon. It's away on the exact date and announcement, but Albany Chamber has been an excellent partner with us and the DEC as well in our plans for current habitat management there. So look for an announcement soon.
That's good. Great. Maybe. Thanks, Casey. Anybody else from the board? No. Okay. Executive Director. I just like to introduce some folks that we've had recently join us. We have Hallie Fletcher. Hallie is an intern. Hi, Hallie, with Wellesley College. She's working in the Conservation Science Department with Neil and his staff. We have Hannah Mather. She's our new environmental educator. Hi, Hannah. Ren Evans is our seasonal interpretive naturalist. Morning, Evan. Our Ren. I told you how easy to make mistakes, even when you're, Emma Chang. Emma is our summer environmental education intern. Sarah Riley. Sarah Riley there. Sarah Riley started with us. Sarah was our visitor services associate on Saturdays since 2017, and she recently took on the full-time role now with us as our community connections coordinator. A large part of that is running our volunteer program. And also we have Alex Soldo. Is Alex here? Oh, you are. I thought you'd be in the field. Alex is our new field ecologist and entomologist. Welcome. And let's see, what else do we have to report? Lupin Fest month. I think you remember we had these flyers at the March meeting. So we changed Lupin Fest from a one-day event to a month-long event. By all measures, it's been a really big success. Only a few people commented that said, we wish it was one day because there was so much to do on one day. But other people said it's great that it was different days so we could come to different things if we missed the one day. So we still have results coming in from surveys, but it was a great success. And that's what you see still in this room, some of the materials that were part of Lupin Fest. there's Lucas, that's jumble if you're so inclined to try and keep the puzzle in the meeting. Let's see, what else? Nature Bus. Nature Bus started again. Nature Bus is on the third year. This is a joint project with CDTA and the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy. We are a stop at Rensselaer Lake and have been since the beginning. The new one this year is called the Schenectady Nature Bus, and it stops here at the Discovery Center, which is something we've been pushing for. So it's a great opportunity. The whole point of the Nature Bus is for people, to get people in nature, particularly those who may not have an opportunity to get here otherwise, if they don't have a car, they live in the inner city, if they're not exposed to it. This is free, and it's safe, and it's something that's easy to do. Speaking of Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy, they are our new tenants. They joined the Nature Conservancy upstairs. They're leasing about a third of the space upstairs. Their lease started June 1st, along with the Nature Conservancy's renewal. Let's see. The Crossgates property that we approved acquiring, I think finally in December of 23. That property closed on March 30th. There's press that Patty sent out in your materials in the media articles. The press picked up that mitigation conveyance to us. Just lost my train of thought. The whole point of that is, so now we're working on, this is going to show up, and I don't know if Lisa, you would say this in your report, but we're going to add it. We have to add it as an asset because there's value. So I'm going to work with an appraiser. We're going to have it appraised. So until we get the appraisal, we will show that on our balance sheet as the assessed value. So that's an additional nearly 7 acres to the preserve, and it's really an important piece. And it helps link from basically the Carnegie Hill back into Blueberry. And I think that's it. I was just going to ask Erin. Erin, can you say a couple of words about the archaeological project?
Sure. Yeah. So SUNY Albany is working in the Albany Pine Bush this summer. They are conducting an archaeological field school, and they're working out in the Great Dune region of the preserve. Professors Sean Rafferty and Chris Wolf are actually a course that students are taking. They are in the Department of Anthropology. It's a field methods in archaeology, and they're excavating the Helm site, which is a residence from the mid-1800s. And they are looking specifically at, this was a family that were German immigrants, so they're looking to see what types of objects they can find that reveal a little bit more about their life. So they are out there every weekday except for Thursdays. You can go out and visit them. They are open for people to stop by and ask questions. They're also on Instagram, so if anybody does Instagram, it's northeast.archaeology, and you can follow their progress there.
Thanks, Erin.
You're welcome.
And we're hoping maybe, did you say this? Maybe we can have one or both of them come and talk to us in September?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out something. Neil, is there anything you'd like to say for the tech committee report or project review?
Just, there's no report. We didn't meet. So we met last month in June for the field trip to a recent burn and looking at Carter Blues and Lupin and management on.
Great, thanks, Neil. Lisa, financial report.
Good morning, everybody.
Yep.
Okay. Financial report as of April, which is 1 month of our fiscal year. So not a lot here. On the revenue side, on our statement of financial activity, we have a small contribution of $170. This will be our budget center for our Trustco donations, which hit quarterly. So we'll see that revenue booked in June, September, December, and March in the future. Government grants and contracts are slightly under budget, 98%, just less reimbursed expenses. Mitigation is zero. This again will be our quarterly center for booking mitigation. So land sale, you will see this in June, September, December, and March as well. Lease revenue is on budget for the year, and other revenue is slightly higher than budget due to increased merchandise sales from the gift shop. So total revenue came in at 99% of budget for April. On the expense side, personnel and fringe are a little bit over budget, $11,000. This is due to workers' comp payment in April of $15,000. Travel and training is on budget Contractual is on budget, and you also see a large number here on the budget side. This is our DEC rollover fund that we carry over every year that we have to. Communication is slightly over budget. This is due to prepaid funds that we booked in March that we flipped over into expenses in April. Occupancy is on budget. Supplies and equipment are on budget. Other expenses are slightly under budget by $300. So total expenses came in and revenue very, very close to budget for the 1 month, giving us an overall operating cash surplus of $17.67. If we move down to a balance sheet account, which is our capital expenditure account, we purchased a vehicle for the preserve, so we have $27,000 there versus what we'll see in a new budget. We did not have this budgeted, so you'll see there's some of the revised budget that we're about to present. Capital expenditure, so operating cash flow is negative $25,000, including the capital. So if we go to non-cash operating revenue, we have our depreciation expense, which is on budget at $21,600. And we have a net loss on investments of $198,000. This is due to a decrease in small floor funds. Good news is in May, we had a $230,000. So we are actually positive for the month of May there. So our change in that position, as you would see on the audit, if presented, would be a loss of $217,000, but that's pretty much due to all the non-cash operating expenses. Any questions on that? Okay. Up to the balance sheet. Cash and cash equivalents are lower, $209,000. And we have not received our payment for our quarterly expense for January through March, and we have not received an advance from DEC, so it's lower. Grants receivable. This is an increase. This is the money owed for DEC for April and also last quarter. Accounts receivable. This is mitigation. This actually has been paid. It came in yesterday. Lease receivable. This is just an adjustment that we flipped from year end into April. You will see this receivable zero as of the end of May. This is our TNC lease that ends May 31st, and 2 new leases begin June 1st with TNC and Mohawk Hudson. Inventory remain the same. Prepaid is zero. You will see this every year from March to April. These are our fiscal year expenses for 24-25 that we put into this year. Then we report in March. Investments, as I said before, decreased $198,000 due to market fluctuations. Capital assets increased $6,000. This is due to a depreciation expense of $21,600 and a purchase of a vehicle for $28,000. Land remained the same and deferred outflows from New York State returning from the bank, giving us a $216,000 decrease in total net assets, pretty much due to a decrease in cash assets. On the liabilities, accounts payable decrease. This was due to accrued expenses on our March 31st audit that we put out of there in April. Deferred revenue increased $15,000. This is TNC lease payment that was prepaid for the following month. New York State pension liability remained the same. Lease liability remained the same. Again, you will see this go down to zero in May, and we will book in March of 2025 the lease liability for both TNC and Mohawk Hudson due to scheduling. OPEB liability remained the same, giving us a slight increase of $500. So total net assets invested in capital assets is above. So $6,000 increase. This is due to purchase of the truck and the preserve, and depreciation expense of $21,600. Reserved assets remain the same, and unreserved assets decreased $223,000, giving us a $217,000 decrease in total net assets. This is our operating income of $1,700 combined with our depreciation expense of $21,600 and a loss on investment of $180,000. Any questions on that?
If you would perhaps comment briefly on what the onboarding statewide financial system is going to have.
Yes, We are in the process, our DEC payment is going to be maybe a little bit delayed, this year. We're in the process of converting over from a system called Grants Gateway, to the state financial system to request our quarterly reimbursement. Reimbursement-based grant, we send in the expenses. That has not been, we are set up in it, Chris and I both are set up in it, we're set up in January. I am waiting to hear from DEC when they will have period 3 available for us to actually enter a budget and then request our expenses. But until then, we will have a delay in funds until we get, we actually get the money put in. And when I spoke with DEC, when they did the conversion over to SFS, they re-encumbered our funds. So all the unencumbered funds that we had, they're slowly working on unencumbering them all. So we could have a slight delay in reimbursements, but we have the Bank of Greene County, which we will pull funds from in the beginning, and then we also have the reserve account that we will pull funds from if we need to. So we'll be okay for cash. We just may be delayed on payment. So you may see that receivable just keep rising and rising and rising, but our cash position is okay.
Tribute to, effective management of reserve funds.
Right.
And the existence of said reserve funds as well.
Thank you.
Great.
Wait, we didn't finish.
Wait,
We didn't, oh, investment, sorry. You better on this side. We don't want to see those this month. We don't want to
So
see
you
those
never
next
get any questions, that's what you often do.
speaking of the reserve,
Speaking of the reserve, we had a loss in all 4 funds, in this account, $198,000 loss. As of May 31st, we had a $33,000 gain. So a total of a $231,000. So just market conditions, as you know, they're all over the place, but, so this is negative news. We'll move on to the positive news tonight. Any questions on that? And we'll talk about investments in a little bit.
so just going back to John's point, the reserve fund is currently just under $1 million.
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
Any other
thank you.
questions? No, thank you. All right. Next up, we have Frank Ferrucci, partner with Wojcicki and Company, to give us a presentation on this year's audit. Frank, would you like me, where do we, no, you can stand anywhere you want.
All right.
Here's probably good for the camera. Do you start with a report to the board?
Yeah, start with the report.
Okay. Let's see. No, you go right at that.
Glad I came up with.
I know. I know.
Otherwise, I'm holding everybody up.
I know.
Or I have more time to talk.
Well,
Now everybody's laughing now.
well, yes, we'll like that.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Frank Ferrucci, a partner at Wojcicki and Company. I'm sure many of you remember me from previous presentations. In accordance with government auditing standards, I had to roll off last year. So back on, pleasure to be back and working with Wish again. So what I have here is 3 different reports that are a byproduct of our audit. The first one that I'll walk through is the report to the board that Chris has up there on the screen, the required audit communication that summarizes our significant audit matters. So right under qualitative aspects of accounting practices, I'm sure everybody's aware management is responsible for the selection and the use of appropriate accounting policies used by the commission that are described in Note A to the financial statement. These 3 bullet points that we have here underneath are 3 new GASB standards that were required to be updated or implemented in the current year, 94, 96, and then 99. 94 is public-private and public-public partnerships. An example of this probably would be like a cash flow leasing arrangement on the MVP arena. If you were to own that, obviously not applicable to the commission here. 96 is a subscription-based IT arrangement. This is similar to the leasing standard that was implemented last year. This is more on the IT end. We worked with Lisa on implementation on this. You do have some small IT arrangements that do meet the scope, but are not material to sell, so therefore no impact on what you're going to see. And then 99 is really just a clarity standard, cleaning up some stuff that was a little bit unclear in
We noted that there was no transaction entered into by the commission during the year which lacked any authoritative guidance or consensus, and we believe all significant transactions are reported in the appropriate time period. At the bottom of page 1 and moving on to page 3, that there's significant accounting estimates, probably the most sensitive accounting estimates that the commission has. And the 3 bullet points that we have here, Lisa did a good job of already touching base on the fair value of investments. You're going to see the statements, you have a positive year, but obviously that's swung shortly after year end. And then you have rather large estimates in your pension liability and the deferred outflows and inflows, and then your OPEB. Those are the 2 large liabilities that are on the statement of financial condition. And then you do have an estimate related to the discount rate used to determine the lease receivable. But that number has dwindled in the current year, but that will go back up with the lease next time. Very happy to report, I'm going to put difficulties and disagreements together, that we had no difficulties in dealing with the audit. Happy to report that. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements under professional standards are required to let the board know if there was any material misstatements that we asked management to correct. There were none, or if there was uncorrected misstatements that we material enough to report to you, but not material enough to report to the statement, there were none as well. So the numbers that you see here in the audit is very similar to what, or actually it's identical to what we. So that's a testament to the current accounting department. The information that you're receiving for me is very relevant to what you see. Management representations, every year we're required to get a rep letter stating we responded truthfully to our inquiries, provided the information we need in order to complete our audit procedures and issue our audit opinion. The date of that letter, the date of our audit report are required to be the same. That's why I highlighted the date. So once we get through today's meeting, you approve the Paris report, all this, it feels like a circular reference, but we'll get everything issued in the date of the day. Down below, management consultations with other independent accountants. This is similar to obtaining second opinion. I like the days we had with this agreement with management. This would be more prevalent. To our knowledge, there were no consultations with other independent accountants during the year. And then finally, other matters. This talked about other information that is in the financial statements that you have required supplementary information in accordance with APBPC standards. The first one would be the management discussion analysis, which is the first thing that you see in the audit financial statement. And then you also have schedules back related to the pension and OPEB liabilities. It is required supplementary information. We do perform limited procedures on that information, but we don't audit it or provide an opinion on it. Just more supplementary. And then that second paragraph there relates to your annual reports, your Paris report, and the other information out. We are not engaged to report on that, but we are required under professional standards to read that information, make sure there's no material inconsistency. In those reports, in comparison to the audit. So if there were a material inconsistency, we would ask you to correct it. If they chose not to correct it, issue it as is. In our audit report, we would have to see it. We've been providing those reports. We've reconciled them. There's nothing in there, so it will be as you see in the audit range. But once you finalize that today, that's the required audit communication. The next report that I'm going to go through is where information will be the audited financial statements here. So as I mentioned, the first few pages are management discussion and analysis. It is a very good summary of what happened during the year. So if you don't want to read through the other 30 pages of the document, that and this. As I mentioned, we do limit procedures to tie the numbers, making sure that there's no material impact. Starting on page 6 and going through page 8 is our independent auditor's report. This will have our letterhead up on the top and our signature at the bottom. Get through everything. The first paragraph that you see here is the opinion on the financial statement. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statement presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of the commission as of March 31st, 2024 and 2023, and changes in the financial position and cash flows for the year that ended in accordance with the GAAP. modified opinion is the highest level of assurance we're allowed to provide to professional opinion. Paragraphs that follow provide a little more information on the basis for our opinion. We conduct our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States. Management does have responsibilities for the financial statement. That includes the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with US GAAP, including designing, implementation, and means of internal control. Page 7 provides more detail on what our responsibilities are as auditors. This is greatly expanded if you look back at prior years, more recent, going back maybe 4 or 5 years, just on what our responsibilities are as auditors. I do like to highlight that we provide reasonable assurance, and it is a very high level of assurance that is obviously do not have, and more information is there for your reading on that. Bottom of page 7 and going on to page 8. Talks about the required supplementary information and the other information that was mentioned. That's your PARIS report, your inner reports. And the last paragraph references a report in accordance with governmental auditing standards where we consider the internal control of financial reporting and the performance compliance with laws and regulations. I'll talk about that report just a little bit. Page 9, this is your statement of financial position. So I get the nice job of telling you how your investments went up in the current year. And that's really the swing when you look at your total assets. 2023, they went down and you went back up. That's really where your swings are from an asset standpoint. The other changes, material changes on this statement of financial position would be your, now you have a net pension liability instead of a net pension asset as you had in the prior years. That's always done on a lag, but that's on 2023 information, even though we're reporting for 2024, because the APBPC standard allows you to go 12 months back. And the way the state pension works, that's how they calculate it. So you're not always going to be in the year that's happening. So market performance kind of drove that liability. Market was down at the end of 2023. That's really driving the numbers up. You do have some swings in the OPEB. That did come down a little bit. Just really those are discount rates. There's a lot of external functions that flow into the discount rate went up, which drove that number down slightly in the current year. Page 10, this is your statement of revenues, expenses, and change in that position. Your top line, you'll see a little bit of an increase in operating income. That's really driven by your government grant. As you mentioned, your expense reimbursement. So your expenses are up. I would expect, the board should expect to see that your government grant income is up as well too. On the expense side, you do have some increases in the salaries. There was 3% raises, one-time bonuses. Contract and professional fees, you did some trail work on the ground, that's driving that number up. And then, you'll see the pension expense right here. That's obviously an expense this year compared to a recovery last year. That's where your market losses are kind of flowing in. And then the other big swing here would be your OPEB numbers right here. So see how much the discount rate effectively swings those numbers that flow into your statement that changes. And then finally down here is where you see the big swing on the investment income in the current year compared to the loss. Moving on to page 11, this is your statement of cash flows. So as we talked, you do have a lot of actuarial assumptions and non-cash items that effectively swing through the financial statement. Your cash flow provided by operating activities from a board perspective is really where you want to look to see, okay, are we cash flow positive? So obviously you are by about $86,000 in the current year. Last year you were also cash flow positive. So there's a lot going on in the financial statement that is non-cash. It looks potentially like you could have some big swings in that position, but from an operating perspective, you are cash flow positive, which is awesome. Going to page 12, that starts note A, and that goes to the top of page 16, which is your significant accounting policies. All significant accounting policies are appropriately reflected here. One of the things that I do like to mention on the notes, we don't want to go crazy. You're boring everybody. But Chris, if you go to page 23, this is, I'm going to show you the pension piece, but this is also in the OPEB section as well too. So if you just go down to these tables, if you don't mind. So here's really where you see the swings in actuarial assumptions, if you're curious about that. We hope that's going in. So your discount rate this year is 5.9, same thing as last year. So if you went down to 4.9, if the actuarial assumption went down, your liability would go up to 2.7. If it went up to 6.9, you'd have about an asset down. So it's really where you see how, even though you were a very small piece of the ultimate pension plan here for the state, little tweaks in those assumptions can drastically change what's going on in your financial statement. So that just provides a little more context. And then page 27 and 28 is our report on internal control of financial reporting and compliance. This is an integral report in conjunction with governmental auditing standards. So we do consider your internal control as a basis for determining our audit procedures and planning for our audit. In accordance with government auditing standards, if we found a deficiency in internal control that we need to be significant deficiency or material weakness, we would be required to be reported here so that the board have the report that we had neither of those. On the last page of this report, page 28, we do perform tests of compliance with certain laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and the results of our test disclose no instance of non-compliance for other matters that are required to be reported. And then the last two pages of the financial statements are required supplementary information in conjunction with the pension. And finally, we have one last report. It's very small. It's our report on your compliance with section 2925(3)(f) and your investment guidelines. So we do actually provide an opinion on whether you're in compliance with your investment guidelines and in conjunction with your state guidelines. So Chris, we scroll down just a little bit. That last sentence there, in our opinion, the commission complied in all material respects with the aforementioned requirements for the year ended March 31st, 2024. So this is just an examination engagement. In accordance with governmental auditing standards, the last section of this report, similar to what I just mentioned for the agency, we are required, if there were any to report that. But again, we leave that section. That's an overview on the audit and the reports. Question.
Frank, I'd like to apologize for yawning twice.
I know it is not very exciting.
But a boring audit report is a good thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is good. These meetings are much more difficult if I have findings.
Yeah.
I'm sure all your needs are not like.
No.
Anybody else need coffee?
Before I got up.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll have the final audits. I'll send those out either at the end of this week or next week.
Yeah, we can.
With all the electronic. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have to do that. That's fine. We can work. That's fine. There's no rush. Thank you. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, hats off to you and to Lisa and to the board for continuously making sure we afford on.
Thank you.
A lot of damage. Thank you.
Year after year after year.
And we enjoy it.
Yeah.
Completely, that was.
That's the admin.
Thank you.
That's the
That was good. Thank you.
Our office manager.
Thank you. That's Pat, yeah.
Thank you. Jeff.
That's great.
Okay, moving on to more exciting documents. We have the real property report. That's action item A. So we are required to provide a real property report for our fiscal year ending in March of 24, whether we did acquire or dispose of any real property, and we did not acquire nor did we dispose of any real property. Last fiscal year. So that's what this report is. It's part of the Public Authorities Law that we have this report. If there's any questions, I can answer them. If not,
So the cross case property didn't come within that?
no, because that closed May 30th. That'll be picked up in next year. When I wrote it, yes. motion to accept that? Nancy?
Yep.
Any comment or discussion? Is there a second?
Second.
Steve, all in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have our Paris, reports. So these are all four, and I'll go through them and I'll come back to the actual resolution. So there's the assessment of internal controls, the prompt payment policy report, procurement report, and then the annual report financial summary. So the assessment of internal controls, this is a report that's required. You see this every year in June. This is basically the result of the audit, the process that Lisa and I go through in looking at are we following all of our internal guidelines, and then what Jessica does as well. And so that's the assessment of internal controls. And we have this document, which is directly from the authority's budget office that certifies that we, yes, did follow that process again this year. Next is the annual report of prompt payment. We have a prompt payment policy that requires us to pay an invoice from a vendor within 30 days if it is indeed accurate. And we have done that. That's what this report says. That statement says. I did not include the full procurement report because it's 40+ pages. The link, it's up on our website. All procurements, any expenses to any vendor, $5,000 or more have to be in that report. That's what that full report says. And then finally, this is the annual financial summary. The annual report includes many things, including board members, staff, expenses, lots of things. But there's one section specifically on financial information, and that's just this section, and this is the audit. This is the audited numbers that tie right back into that audit, those numbers that Frank. Yes. So we have those all four to be in compliance, and these go into the final reports that we will upload, Lisa and I, to the controller to Paris, probably tomorrow. Are there questions on any of those? I can answer.
Chris, do you happen to know if the Office of the State Comptroller has a prompt payment policy?
I don't think it applies to state agencies. I don't think state agencies have a prompt payment policy. It's in the public authorities law. Public authorities are required. I don't know that the state has.
Well, I'm just thinking of the cash flow situation regarding the conversion to SFS.
Right, which is affecting everyone. I don't know.
So they can tell us that we have to pay everybody promptly, but they're not required to do the section.
And I can tell you that they don't. I can report that doesn't happen.
I haven't made that grouchy observation.
Either way, we are required to, and we are compliant with that policy.
Good.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you. Is there a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay. John, is there any discussion? Is there a second?
A reluctance.
There's a John. Thank you.
Get off my grass.
In favor. Thank you.
Aye.
Next one is multi-year contract. Interestingly enough, it is with Jeske and Company. With Jeske, their contract ended with the report that you just heard. So their contract runs through the end of this month, through June of 24. We went out to bid. We only got 2 responses. Jeske was chosen as the highest and best bidder, primarily because of cost, but also with everything else with the technical expertise. So Jeske was chosen to continue. This is for a contract for 5 years, and that contract is attached. So the contract will begin July 1 and runs to 30th of June, 2029.
Chris, is there an annual escalator in that contract?
There is, so it's here for 25, 26, and 27, it stays at 17.5. And then for the last 2 years, it goes up to 18,000, so it goes up $500 for students.
Pretty minimal.
Yeah, it's very reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do a very, very thorough job. Any other questions on the contract? Is there a motion for that? Jessica, is there any discussion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Last resolution we have is an updated, budget. As you know, we passed the budget in December as we're required, which is kind of hard to do. You're not sure where your fiscal year is going to end. So this is an updated budget for the current fiscal year we're in. There's just a couple of things I want to point out. There's not a lot of change. There's a rollover of 949, almost 950,000. That's right up here in this line under state grants. So it's a rollover from the EPF funds that didn't get expended last year. A big portion of that money, there was 700,000 that we had budgeted for the accessible trail to start the grounds project that we didn't get to. We're still working with OGS to get that agreement in place. But we did rebudget it, so that 700 is already in this fiscal year. And also a project, a lot of the habitat work, you're going to hear from Joel in a minute, some of the habitat work that we've been doing recently. The contractor that we chose, they bid on it at no cost. So the material that they're removing, the black locust, has such value that there's no cost to us whatsoever. So that also impacted the budget, so there's rollover. There's also, I want to point out, a reduction in lease revenue. So we have a new tenant. We have Mohawk Hudson and the Nature Conservancy. Their lease rates remain the same. We negotiated to keep the same rate, $16.82 a square foot, which is still a good price based on our consultations with our property manager here at First Columbia. But we took two spaces. We took a small office upstairs and a larger office for ourselves because we're running out of space here. And we need another conference room, and we needed another office space. So we took that out, and it worked well because Mohawk Hudson didn't need those, so it's fine. So you're seeing a lease reduction of about $6,000 a year, which is roughly 3% what we were getting in the past. And they both signed leases for 3 years, I'm sure. And as far as expenses, there's a couple of things. Lisa mentioned capital expense of a truck. So we bought a used Toyota Tacoma, 27 and change, 27,696, to replace a vehicle, a 2005 Ford Escape hybrid that died. The electric part of the motor kind of worked, but the gas motor died. So, and we need something that we can actually maneuver through the preserve because as stewardship staff know and fire staff know, I won't let them drive the big trucks in the preserve because John Brooks kills them. And then
Although I saw one the other day.
never logo. So the other
Undercover.
You notice that very quick answer he had, right?
Stealth vehicle.
you still need vehicles in the preserve. We have to get work on the preserve. We got to get there. We can't have stewardship seasonal. I mean, Jesse,
She's making it up.
They had to carry a split rail over their shoulder.
Yeah.
All right. The other capital expense was $31,000 for new security cameras that are outside. That was budgeted last fiscal year, but we didn't get the project done or started for reasons on their end. So that's in this fiscal year too. So that's basically the whole budget. And I just want to say about and thanks to John Lowe's and Blake Etchison, Casey Etchison, they managed this project. The new cameras at the first one that picks up cars as a license plate, which is actually a big deal because we have had multiple instances where we had to deal with law enforcement situations. So when you're pulling in, you know, so that is going back. So those are the only changes of any significance in this. One thing I will add on a serious note, with cash flow, we're gonna monitor how things are going. Like, I don't know when DEC is going to reimburse this. Is it gonna be 3 months? Is it gonna be 6? I don't know. So we're gonna be monitoring, be careful with our expenditures, despite having the budget. Any questions I can answer on the budget?
Is the accessible trail fully funded by that rollover?
It's already in there.
Yeah, but
No,
it
that,
covers the whole cost.
the,
That time.
it's right here, it's already here, Jess. This one,
It covers the first phase.
it covers just, it covers
Just the trail.
just the trail.
Yeah, that's not.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, yeah, so it covers design, and construction docs, and construction, for just the trail. Nothing else.
But, so this rollover, you believe that you'll have enough cash from DEC to disperse everything, like they'll disperse everything you need to support this higher budget?
Yeah.
Okay,
We're following what they've done in the past.
okay.
There's no reason not to think that. So again, any big expenditures. Any questions on the budget? No, is there a motion? Move. Don?
Second.
Any conversation on that? No. All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, back up to the agenda. And wow, we had a schedule now.
We're gonna have it.
No, we started 9:30. So okay, so we have a presentation from Joel Hecht, our stewardship director. Joel is going to talk about some of our recent habitat restoration work. As you may or may not know, I have a hard time thinking you don't know about the feedback or having heard about some of the public feedback about the clearing work that we did on Route 155, clearing black locust, which is now starting to grow back with annual oats, starting to get green. That site was about 18 acres. Does that sound right, Joel?
Yes.
And then Kings Road, we did beforehand with the same contractor with black locust. Taking away your whole presentation. Was about 20 outside. All right, I'm done. Joel, go ahead. All right.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Can't help
So earlier, Chris had mentioned a bunch of new staff we have. Welcome, all of you. It kind of got me thinking about the people in this room, and I figured I'd do a little bit of involving the audience type thing. So how many of you have been involved with the Pine Bush for at least 15 years?
Yeah. We're in.
Okay. In some way? 20 years?
We're in.
25?
Possibly.
30? 29 and a half? That's where I'm at. Or should we say 30? Anyone more than 30?
Oh.
Sam, too?
I think,
Yeah.
back with online.
Oh, okay. Wow. So that's kind of cool, that there's a bunch of people, and all of you who are new will be saying this one day, 30 years from now. Yeah, so when I put this presentation together, I was thinking about 30 years, like, wow, 30 years seems like a lot of time. But one of the benefits of being here for a long time is that you see the change.
Yeah.
And the change has been very dramatic. For those of you who've only been here for a couple of weeks, it won't mean much to you, but for those of us who have had time to watch that process, the preserve is not at all the same place that when I started 30 years ago. It's a completely different landscape. It looks completely different. So I just want to touch base a little bit on sort of the history of where we've kind of been and where we're going, and then a little bit more of some of the current work that's going on right now. So I think we all know when we talk about the pine bush, we're talking about this rare inland pine barren place. And we have this tagline, globally rare, nationally significant, locally distinct. That's all true. But I've always thought one of the things kind of missing from that is that a lot of natural areas are sort of like the set it and forget it type of scenario, right? We buy it and it's kind kind of there, but we don't do much with it. The pine bush is not bad at all. It's a very actively managed landscape. So the question is, well, why? Like, why do we manage this place so heavily as compared to a lot of other natural areas? So I think those of us who've been here 15, 20, 30 years, we know the answer to that question. And hopefully new people do too, but we're basically trying to reverse the effect of fire suppression, right? So without fire here consistently over the last 100 years, we have a lot of other community plant types, whatever, that move in, and it changes the landscape dramatically. We have to remove those invasive plants. So that's when we're doing all this work. We have to get them out of here and try to set the clock back to what it was 100 years ago. And then we're trying to restore the quality of the pine barrens. So all the work we do on the landscape is basically trying to get the pine barrens healthy, trying to make it a good, healthy place for all the plants and animals that call it home. And then there's sort of this long-term commitment, right? So the commission is here, I don't know, maybe forever, maintaining, keeping this place as a barren in every way that we can, using the management tools that we have. So for all the staff who have been here for quite a while, it's been kind of a puzzle putting this all together. I know when we first started, I think one of the first times I was out with Chris, because Chris started before I did. But, around the preserve, we're looking at just hundreds of acres of black locust trees. In my mind, I was kind of like, that's never going to be a pine barren again, right? I mean, there's no way. 30 years later, the story is very different. So I decided to take over some of Steve's job, a little bit, crunching numbers, because Steve's really good at it. I'm really bad at it. But I figured I could at least come up with some basic numbers to kind of tell the story quickly. So this map is kind of showing the entire preserve, but the hatched areas are the areas where we've done some sort of management, meaning mowing, tree removal, thinning, and invasive plant treatments, at least once. So we've touched about, out of the 3,400 acre preserve, we've touched about 2,300 acres. Okay. So that leaves us about 1,000 acres, give or take, that we still need to do some work on of some kind. Not all of it, some of it's wetlands, places maybe we don't need to do work. But there's still quite a few of those tan areas you can see where we really haven't done much on the landscape. And the other number I had fun with was kind of looking at all the sites where we've done work at least once or multiple times. We've been back to the same site doing work. And that gives us a number around 12,000 acres, give or take. Don't hold me to it, Steve. I don't know exactly, but that was the number that kind of came up, and that does not include planting that we do on the landscape, which is sort of another touch, I guess you could say. So I was kind of like, wow, that's kind of a cool little story there that you can kind of show quickly about how much work has gone on across the preserve. So then I decided to use some pretty colors and just sort of break it down into kind of work that's gone on in various places. So for locust removed out of what, 700 plus acres that we originally started with 30 years ago. Well, I think give or take some land acquisition since then. We've removed about 461 acres. So that's quite a bit shown in the green color. We've done pitch pine thinning, 170 acres. We've done hardwood thinning on 780 acres. And the black locust remain, you can see, is primarily in the western part of the preserve in the red. There's some other little patches here and there and buffers we didn't take out. So that kind of gives up, again, another sort of sense of how much of the preserve we've been working on. And you notice I've left fire out of this. Fire is Tyler's thing, so I didn't put fire on the map. This is just talk about more mechanical treatment, chemical treatment, that kind of stuff. So black locust, I think most of us know about this tree, but it's an invasive non-native tree that has invaded the pine barrens over many, many years. And in the process, it pretty much kills everything in its path. It's a clonal species. It has a couple other species that will hang on with it, but for the most part, when you walk into a mature locust clone of mature trees, there's nothing in the understory that resembles pine barrens. So in this case, we have to basically go in and pretty much start from scratch. And this is pretty heavy on the landscape. Like, this is some serious work. We're not just going in there and moving a couple of invasive plants. So, as Chris mentioned earlier, we got a lot of attention for the site of Route 155, where we moved 18 acres, because a lot of people drive down that road every day. When they saw that change, we had a lot of people calling and saying, I thought that was the preserve. Which was a good thing, actually good to hear from them, right? Because that means they care about the place. They're actually interested in what we're doing, even though they didn't quite understand. And so we had an opportunity to help them understand what we were doing. This is the site off on Kings Road, where we removed almost 50 acres of black locust. And you can probably see the pitch pine hiding here in the locust right here. It's the same pitch pine that's over here. So again, when you're driving on the road and you see that change, that's quite a shock to some people. Again, they're like, it's a nature preserve. What are you doing? This is a sort of a similar view of the same general area off Kings Road. Again, just showing what's kind of cool here is that, the trees are so dense, you can't see that dune that's hiding in there, but it shows up really clearly once you take out the invasive trees. Now, this site, we did leave pitch pine and oak trees, which we often do as much as we can, depending on the site. So this whole tree removal thing, again, it's big machinery, it's heavy on the landscape. That looks a little like it's going slow. It's a little smoother than that in real life. But just to really quickly explain, because I know some of our staff were kind of curious to know what the machines were and how they worked and what they did. So this is a machine called a feller buncher. Basically, can grab a tree up to about 18 inches in diameter, cut it off, pick it up, and put it down in a bundle. Kind of fun to watch. And then you have the next machine, which is a skidder. So I put a little snow in these because they kind of warm out and they need to kind of cool down a little bit. So I think a little snow would help us feel better, but the skidder basically is dragging the trees out of the site. You can see in the background there, I mean, it's almost 100% black oak trees. Sorry about the jumping screen. Okay, so once the skidder takes that material, it brings it to landing, or what they call the header, and the wood is processed. So in this case, they'll cut maybe the bottom 16-foot piece or whatever they want at the log, and then the rest of it goes into a pile, and eventually it's chipped. There's a machine in the background there, you can barely see it, that is chipping up all that wood, and they're chipping it into that tractor trailer. So again, big machinery, big equipment, your typical construction site type of work going on in a nature preserve.
What do you guys do with the chip?
So wherever we hire the contractor is responsible for all the wood and material that comes to the site. So they take the logs, they take the chips. The chips go to multiple places. A number of years ago, they used to go to, sewage treatment plants, use a lot of chips to mix with things to get bacterial action going. There was also some going to the biomass fuel type of scenarios. And a lot of it's now going to Galavan. They're actually using it, the colored chips you get at Home Depot in the bags. So Galavan covers the entire Northeast, all the Home Depots. And so a lot of chips go to them. Those chips are all that way.
And the wood, is that marketable somewhere?
Yeah, so over the years, it's fluctuated dramatically. Years ago, we used to pay about $5,000 an acre to get rid of the trees, the black locust, and to have the site stumped and cleared. I'll get into that in a minute. The most recent contractor we had, as Chris mentioned, was no cost to the commission at all, because there's markets now. And I guess a lot of this is going to the Amish community and using the locust for fencing and stuff. The markets change. So it's always kind of something different depending on what year we're at, what the markets are like. But locust traditionally hasn't had a great market for it. But even for hops growing, there was a market for a while because they didn't want to use pressure treated posts. They needed like 16-foot posts for that. So locust this size was perfect for what they were doing.
So the revenue from anything that's done with the biomass that comes off the site comes back to the commission and it's used to cover, or comes does it cover
It
the
doesn't.
cost? Does it cover the
It did in the most recent contract that we had, or last couple of contracts we've had, where it's been zero cost of permission, which is our idea, right?
Right.
In the past, they about 5,000 acres, do a lot of work, and that adds up fast. So we're in a really good place right now from that standpoint, as far as the tree removal part of it. The next pieces we're gonna look at are still cost of permission. But it's dropped down a lot, just to give you, so the next lowest bid I got to do this tree removal work, what happened? This company is big enough and they have enough markets that they were able to make money off of products without having to charge them.
That's
But it's pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't often happen that way.
Is there potential for looking at supermarkets and thinking about like increasing the intensity of this work during periods where the product?
While the demand is there,
Yeah.
jump on it, yeah, absolutely. We're somewhat limited because all these sites that we cut, we have to go in, I'll show you next, and do the stumping work, and that costs us quite a bit, so we have to stay within budget. Although, I keep asking Chris for more money, and he gives it to me. Don't worry about that.
There's no value to stone.
No. So, stumping is basically pulling all these roots and everything out of the ground, and black locusts have this amazing root system. Because it's a clonal species, trees are all connected. So the guys will pull a stump here and 40 feet away, a stump will move, because it's all this big spaghetti network of roots. So they use excavators to do that work. And there's some area that they've already been in.
So this wasn't part of the freebie that was, contract.
No.
This,
The stumping work is not a freebie. Nope. You can't get free all the time. You try. So then the next thing they do is, they dig a trench and they actually throw that wood material in the trench and then we cover it over with sand. And the sand tends to flow right in and fill that trench up nicely. They don't get a whole lot of sinkholes right there. Once in a while.
Every now and
So then they cover the stumps and all that wood material over with the sand. Sometimes they'll use an excavator to do that. And more commonly, they'll use a bulldozer. And this is the site off of Kings Road. You can see it's a total change, obviously. We turned it into a big sand dune, which is what this place was at some point in the past. This is actually the tallest sand dune in the preserve. It actually has an elevation slightly higher than the top of the Albany landfill.
And nothing that you're doing, like, those can't go back.
The what?
Leaving them on site, that's all dead. There's no generation. Sorry, I retract my question.
Everybody's laughing because locust is never dead, you shall dead. And it takes quite a while. So all these sites, we go back in multiple years afterward and we treat sprouts chemically. The stuff they bury, generally there's complete 3 feet of sand over it, that tends not to sprout back in most cases. But we still, every little fragment of root or anything left sprouts into our tree. So we do have to go back multiple years to keep the locust clones from coming back. Yeah. It's a long-term commitment. Yeah. So the number one question we get from the public, I think, although education staff could probably answer this better than I could, is what about the wildlife, right? You just came in here, you're a nature preserve, you just destroyed it, ripped it all apart. So I think that the short and quick answer we give generally is, yes, the wildlife is disturbed. Yes, we have displaced wildlife. Yes, we've killed some wildlife. But the long-term goal, and even the short term, is that within a couple of years, that place is going to be available and usable for all kinds of public again. So I think that that's sort of like the quick answer we give. I don't know how well this next one's going to work. So this is the site off of 155. And I came out there one day and I see this flag stuck in the middle of the site. So I go with the contractor, I'm like, what's going on out here? And we'll see how good you guys are at picking up on it. But he tells me that there's wildlife out there. In the midst of all this work with his bulldozers running around and everything else, there's wildlife. Has anyone spotted it yet? You got it, Neil?
No.
The camouflage is pretty good. No one sees it yet? If you see it, let me know.
The middle, brown in the middle?
Well, what is it? So here's a still shot to help you out a little bit. Come on, Jesse, smile. You got it?
Why,
Oh, you knew. Oh, that's right. So if you look closely right in the middle of this picture. See it? So what is it? Good question. So it's a bird called killdeer, which is not one that I think I don't think of it typically as sort of a pine barren bird necessarily. I don't know. Do you, Neil? It's a little more of a pine barren
Every time we do a little.
well, right, exactly. But it's really considered a shorebird, but it tends to do quite well in dry places, and they've been around for forever. Really a beautiful bird. One that I've never really, I think, given much attention to. And there it is nesting right in the middle of this site where we just ripped everything out. So the moral of the story is, I guess, that even though we're making a mess of the place temporarily, the wildlife still can use it. And I just put together some real quick little facts about them.
Yeah.
I won't go through all that, but they're really kind of a neat little bird about the size of a robin, and they'll nest right on the ground. They really don't build a nest. They just lay their eggs either like right in gravel or sand or anything like that. Kind of fun. Anyway, so just to give a quick update on the current sites, which we're working on, contains and 155. So the new Carter site, this is it here and right 18 acres right across the street. They were at the same time putting up this massive warehouse building. And that really confused the public because they were thinking this new development on both sides. And it was all happening exactly at the same time. Now I think they're seeing the difference. So then the site's ready for planting. And this is where Jesse comes in with his volunteers and his staff doing seed collection. They have to collect enough seed for us to replant these sites with pine barren plants. And they do a phenomenal job. Jesse gets his volunteers all piled up and going out there. They just finished lupin seed collection, right? We finished for this year?
Correct, yep.
Yeah. So there's a number of species. I listed a couple of them there that we will put into this site after it's open sand to kind of get it started, start that restoration process.
Storing seeds here?
What's that?
Where are you storing the seeds?
Yeah, there's chest freezers downstairs.
Yeah, all the seeds are stored here. Jesse goes out to big flats and they help clean the seed out there, most of it. Some of it's done at Saratoga Tree Nursery and we store it here.
There's gonna be, just FYI, significant investment in the tree nursery. Well, you can probably speak to this better than I said, but, I think there's also discussion about like seed banking. And I think there's a recognition now that there's a tremendous lack of resources and supply chain for not just reforestation work, which the governor has endorsed with the 25 million tree goal, planting trees, but also all the restoration that it's going to take to implement things like the Bond Act and increase resilience and do more of these green infrastructure projects. So you all might want to connect through DEC with others because there may be opportunities to educate the people working on building out this infrastructure about the needs that exist here specifically in the Pine Bush. There's so much going on around the state, and I think that there's an under recognition about the need for, seed banking, seed collection, and also, some of the other work that needs to go underway to develop the supply chain for reforestation. So I think you all as a commission could be an important resource for both at the agency and probably other agencies. So.
Yeah. All right, so I'll just continue on here. So planting is something that we've done on quite a bit of landscape as well. So obviously all those locust sites get planted. We also interseed lupin into some of our really high quality intact pine barrens. We have put pitch pine seedlings in, prairie willow seedlings, scrub oak acorns, et cetera. So we're at about 1,100 acres so far that we've touched at least once with some kind of planting. Just to give you a sense of the scale. Let's see if this works. So this is the machine we use. It's called a seed drill, pulled behind our Bobcat, and it plants 8 rows, planting primarily lupin, the native grass, a little blue stem, and then we also put a cover crop of oats in these sites. You can see the big warehouse across the street. Just a little closer, kind of a cool machine designed specifically for those fluffy grasses we plant. Again, it's kind of hard to watch it at, but
Joel,
it's looking fine on my screen.
Joel, is there grading and contour considered for site restoration to kind of maximize your take hold rate of new vegetation?
What do you?
I mean, are there considerations for slope and aspect and stuff like that, or is once your site is dumped, is it just as is, and that's what is your?
I mean, we try to maintain the dune structure as much as we can, the existing dune structure. So we don't really want to modify any more than we actually have to. When we're burying all the stumps, obviously there's a little bit of a change in what's going on with the stumps and the sand back on top. But generally, they do a good job of kind of smoothing it out and you almost wouldn't notice. But certainly the overall dunes that are out there, we'd like to keep them as intact as possible. Yeah. So just to help the site green up fast, we do put a cover crop of oats in because a lot of the native pine barren plants that we put in, the seeds, they don't really show much the first year. It's really that second year that they start to kick in, and we need something to kind of hold the site. So put in a cover crop of oats. And then we may or may not add trees and shrubs depending on site availability. I'll just touch base real quick on tree thinning because it is something that I mentioned earlier. We have gone into quite a few sites and we've thinned pitch pine. You can see the density change from the red dots compared to the yellow dots. The red is what we're kind of looking for in pine barrens as far as pitch pine trees. So we've done a lot of that kind of work. And it's similar in the sense that we're using big equipment to remove the trees. And we're basically trying to flip the community acreage. So if we have 100 acres that are forested pitch pine community, we want to switch that around so we have 100 acres of pine barren. And this is the kind of thing we've been doing over the last 30 years in quite a few sites. And here's a real life one just to show you real quickly. This is down Rensselaer Lake. So there's the same site before and after thinning. But the understory vegetation left intact, so we're not dumping them down. We will go in hopefully and plant them at some point, with lupin at least, but we're not being nearly as invasive on landscape. And these areas turn green really fast. We also do mowing, anywhere from like 75 to 200 acres a year. So again, lots of active management going on. It's not a passive place from that standpoint. And what's next is Tyler Briggs. So after we mow these sites or whatever we've done to sort of get the restoration process going, then Tyler comes in with fire, and fire is obviously the primary tool we're going to be using to maintain the site long term. Mowing, all these other things are great, but we want to get away from them as much as we can and start to just use fire along the way. And then, like I said, we'll add lupin to those sites after Tyler burns them. If there's not too much wood material left, we'll use that same seed drill to go in and actually put lupin right into the ground and get lupin back into the pine barrens. And then it just takes time. So this is, again, like a long-term commitment, talking. A lot of these sites, local sites, certainly, I would say probably 50 years, maybe longer, before they really start to resemble intact pine barrens. We really don't know for sure. But they're changing pretty quickly, even on their own, without a lot of input. There are pine barren species moving into those sites. And so that's kind of what we're looking to get at the end. That's the goal is a fully intact pine barren. And that's all I got. Some questions that I have, thoughts? Yeah, Ren.
Is there, what, for the black locusts, when they cover the stuff in the trenches, why don't we burn them?
So two reasons. One is that Tyler insists that we have smokes out by dark. And to burn a pile of locust stumps, it would probably smolder for days. They're the locust burns really well, not as well green, but it will burn really well once you get going. But we'd have to either burn very small piles, which would take forever, or if you did a big pile, it would burn for days. And I think just logistically, it would be a challenge, but it has been asked many times, more by the contractors doing the digging. They're like, why don't we burn this? No. Like, well, we're in Albany. That's probably the answer. And they're out in the country somewhere way far away from people. Yeah.
Well, that's what they're starting to do on Long Island and other places, air curtain burners. So
Oh.
basically a tractor trailer
Yeah.
with a double combustion chamber and blows air over it instead of burying stumps.
Okay.
To get rid of, and they're thinking about it in Long Island with the pitch pine. Because there's no market for pitch pine in Long Island.
Right.
So all the stuff they're cutting to deal with southern pine beetle.
Wonder how
And
much
they can
that
consume, they can consume whole trees, like it consumes it within days, go through all of the stumps that. It's not cheap. No, I bet it's free.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah,
but,
they're portable air curtain burners that they bring in, they're like a semi, and contractors just feed them for a week, and burn up all the woody material and then move on to the next site.
Joe, what's the cost for stumping per acre? Like stumping
right around 2,500.
per acre?
Are they taking those offsite or are they burying those too? The stumps, so they take them offsite or do they bury them?
No, they bury them. Yeah, they bury them right on site. Many years ago, we did have a contractor take some off site. It was very expensive, and at that point, we sort of just looked into the option of burying. And it seems there's really, probably no long-term real negative effect, but
And that trench doesn't regrow because it's greater than 3 feet down, you cover it up.
that's the idea.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say they've never regrown. I think we have had time. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Have you ever looked at the kind of a net carbon cost of doing this work? And also, I'm curious to know, like, in your assessment of the ecosystem and then thinking about, you know, what's gonna be happening to climate change, are there adjustments that need to be made about the types of plants you're using or the way the restoration is gonna be happening?
I don't know the answer to the first question. I don't know if Neil has any thoughts on that, but,
Net carbon of what we're,
We're ripping out lots of trees and burning stuff, and, like, what is the carbon impact of management? Is it eventually like net neutral because of the restoration, or?
I don't know, that's something I've been talking about considerably about. You know, one of the challenges is the fire question, right? So obviously you're releasing carbon quickly and immediately, but what happens if you don't burn and you have a catastrophic wildfire? That's hard to compare. Yeah, so there's two questions, Jess. One, yes, probably a net carbon loss in removing the black locust, although that would largely still exist, right? Stored in fence posts and all the places it goes. The second one, when we have data on it, think about fire and maintenance fire regimes long-term. And as long as we're burning more than every 2 or 3 years, giving sites 2 or 3 years to recoup, we know they're sequestering more carbon than we're releasing the prescribed fire. So long-term, the carbon balance is still a net positive. In the short term, it's probably a negative, but we don't have data.
good question. And, you know, as far as changing management slightly, climate change or whatever, you know, we have thought more about plantings on north slopes, south slopes, for example, as a way to sort of maintain certain species. But it's kind of a tough one to.
Yeah.
That's part of the puzzle we haven't spent a lot of time working on yet, but I think it's something that this next generation is going to work on.
Well, and getting the state and the feds to think about, we're always thinking about trees and carbon. Pine barrens and grasslands have this incredible biodiversity and biomass underground that is not currently credited in the same way that we think about trees. Like trees are big and obvious to carbon sink, to carbon storage. Pine barrens and grasslands are also, most of that biomass is below the ground. Oh, I haven't thought about that.
Questions?
Question with the invasive species, do you know, which animals are bringing in seeds?
Well, I know the water, like the water chestnuts, we have that big problem in town. And I was doing a little Google research, and it was what I heard was a kid from Europe too. I think it was Dartmouth, Harvard, it was in a pond, a bird got in, and then it just spread. I didn't know if there was a specific animal. I know humans, if they're bringing people want exotic trees on their property.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
one of the invasives we're really still trying to figure out how we're gonna deal with it is, bittersweet. You know, the binding plant that is very invasive. And we do know that the birds love to eat the berries off of those, and then they'll disperse them all over the place. So, you know, wildlife is certainly a vector, right? It's gonna be moving stuff around, people are moving stuff around. Yeah, and we are in a very fragmented landscape, right? So we've got a lot of places where stuff can come in versus one big contiguous preserve, so. Yeah,
We're dealing with that everywhere.
Well, exactly, yeah. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you go back on that, Chris?
I'm good, I'm in.
You're good, okay. Thank you, Joel. When you call it.
The one thing I didn't mention in the report, and there's been a lot of talk about Tyler back there with fire. How many burns have we done this year? 11?
12
burns. 310.
Around, 320, 330-ish. Yeah, we did 1 in February, 4 in April, 4 in May, and 3 in June.
Yeah.
Including 2 last week.
Yeah, we could have done meeting. The first burn we did this year was the end of February. Yeah, that's good, not so good. Our next meeting is September 19th, and the next one after that, December 19th. Are there any other discussion topics? Anything you want to? Any other questions before we adjourn? The motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
John? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.